Someone left this comment in my hallucinations blog. They said, just yesterday I had Opus asking me after every prompt, "We have been going for a long time, let me save my context and continue tomorrow." But then I really answered every time, "You are a computer, just continue." But it became even worse, so I needed to start a new session. Sounds familiar? You paste in a long document in or ask about something in the middle and you get a confident wrong answer? Or have a 20 message conversations and the model starts contradicting itself, or it's telling you to stop and come back tomorrow. Not because it's hallucinating, because it's running out of room. The model basically raised its hand and said, "Hey, we've been at this for a while," and that is actually a best case scenario. A lot of models actually won't do that. They'll just silently get worse. Same confident tone, less reliable answers. You won't even know what's happening until something is clearly wrong. Either way, the underlying constraint is the same. So let's talk why this happens and what we can do about it. We already talked about tokens, the little chunks of text that models read and charge you for. Today, tokens become something else. They are a unit of memory. Every model has a context window. That's the total number of tokens it can hold up in its head at once. Your inputs plus the output, all of it has to fit into that window. Think of it like a desk, a fixed size desk. Everything that the model actually needs to think about has to be on that desk at the same time. Your question, the document that you pasted, or the conversation history, the system instructions, everything. If you put too much on the desk, things start getting buried. The model will not tell you that, "Hey, I can't fit all of this." It just works with whatever it can focus on and quietly loses track of the rest. So, how big is this desk that we're talking about? It depends on the model. Some older models had a context window of 4,000 tokens. That's roughly maybe 3,000 words, 6 pages. Some have 128,000 tokens. That's a short novel. And some newer models have 1,000,000 tokens or more. That's multiple novels or entire code bases. But here's something people miss. A bigger context window doesn't really mean that the model will pay equal attention to everything in it. It means that you can fit more on the desk. It doesn't mean that the model reads every page with the same care. This limit shows up in two ways. Let's talk first about documents. In documents, you paste 20 pages of text into a model. It could be a legal contract, an insurance policy, internal documentation, whatever it is. You ask a question about something, let's say section 7 of 15 sections. The model might find it might miss it might pull the wrong section entirely. Secondly, in conversations, this is where most people hit the memory limit first. The model doesn't really have a separate memory for all your conversations. So every time that you send a message, the model will reread the entire conversation from the beginning. So your first message, its first reply, your second message, its second reply, all of that way down to whatever you just typed. That whole transcript actually fits back every single time. And in each exchange, you just keep adding more and more tokens to that same pile. So a typical question could be 50 tokens and the model's reply, let's say 300. So in that exchange is 350. 10 exchanges, that will be 3,500. 20 exchanges, 7,000. If you are asking like detailed questions and getting long answers, you can hit 20, 30,000 tokens in just one afternoon. And remember, tokens are costing you real money. You're not just using up memory, you're actually resending and repaying for that entire conversation history every single turn. Tokens are the unit of memory and the unit of cost. So the same resource, but two consequences. And to be fair, models have gotten much better at handling long inputs. You can throw surprisingly large documents at them now. But that limit, that limit still exists. And the longer that input, the more likely something is going to get missed. Researchers have a name for this. They call it lost in the middle. When you give a model a long input, whether that's a document or a conversation history, it tends to pay attention to two places: the very beginning, the very end. The stuff in the middle gets a little less focus. It's like reading a long email thread. You remember how that thread started, you remember the latest message. But that reply from Tuesday 2 p.m., which is like buried 14 messages deep, good luck remembering that. So, this is why things you said early in the conversation drift as the transcript grows. Your early messages end up in the middle of the window, and the middle is where the attention is the weakest. So, most models won't really warn you. They'll just give you the same confident tone, whether they are working from a clear, focused input or maybe they're drowning in context. So, what can we actually do about this? First, the obvious one: use a model with a bigger window. If you're hitting limits with 128K model, try one with million tokens. A bigger window is like a bigger backpack. You can carry more. But that doesn't mean you can instantly find what you need in that backpack. So, let's look at some other strategies. For documents, don't paste everything if you don't need everything. If your question is about section 3 of that document, then just give it section 3, not that whole document. Less noise, better signal. Summarize first and then ask. So if you need the model to work with something long, don't ask a real question right away. First say, summarize this document into 5 or let's say 10 bullet points. Then ask the actual question using those bullets as the context. I know it's 2 messages instead of 1, but now the model is working with a much more cleaner context. Just make sure that the summary hasn't left out something important. Put the important stuff at the beginning or at the end. Models do better with information placed near the start or end of long prompts than something that's stuff buried in the middle. If something is critical, don't hide it halfway through. For conversations, reinstate important constraints. If you told the model something critical early in the conversation and now you're 15-20 messages in, just say it again. It will cost you a few extra tokens, but it will definitely save you a wrong answer. Use the system prompt for persistent rules. Most platforms have a place for instructions that consistently guide the model. In ChatGPT or Claude AI, it's called custom instructions. In Amazon Bedrock, it's the system prompt field. Put your stable rules there. Use clear, unambiguous language. Avoid vague directives. But don't assume they'll all be followed perfectly forever. In longer conversations, repeating that critical instruction in your current message still helps. Start fresh when the conversation drifts. If you've been chatting for 20 turns and the topic has shifted like 3 times, just start a new conversation. Carry over what matters. Leave behind that doesn't. If you're just getting started, the model has a memory limit called a context window. It applies to documents and conversations equally. Longer inputs mean thinner attention. So if you're pasting something long, ask about specific sections. If you're in a long conversation, restate the important stuff. And if things start feeling a little off, just start a new session. If you are on the builder side, remember, context window is a spec. It is not a guarantee. A million token window doesn't really mean a million tokens of perfect recall. Put all your critical information at the edges and not in the middle. And start thinking about retrieval, because this is where we are heading. Instead of stuffing an entire document into the context window, retrieval systems actually fetch only the relevant chunks and pass that in. That's what RAG or Retrieval Augmented Generation does. We'll get to it in the next episode. For conversations, production systems compress older terms into a summary that takes up less space but preserves the key facts. Same principle for both. Give the model less, but give it the right less. How? That's what we're going to explore in the next video. So, ride along.